Hello, and welcome to the How to Exit podcast, where we introduce you to a world of small to medium business acquisitions and mergers. We interview business owners, industry leaders, authors, mentors, and other influencers with the sole intent to share with you what it looks like to buy or sell a business. Let's get rolling. And now a moment for our sponsors. I want to highly recommend you get Acquisition Aficionado magazine. Every month, Acquisition Aficionado magazine brings you tactics for business buying and selling you won't find anywhere else. Learn firsthand from industry leaders who share their success stories, featuring in-depth interviews and stories from leading figures in the business acquisition industry. This multi-platform mobile magazine speaks to acquisition entrepreneurs wherever they are in the journey. And I want you to visit acquisitionaficionado.com today. Hello and welcome to the How to Exit podcast. Today I'm here with David Lynch and we're going to talk everything about growing. David started a business from scratch, from his house even, and grew it up and then sold it to private equity. That's one of the things we're going to chat about. And then you're actively pursuing acquisitions now. I want to thank you for being here today, David, and tell us who you are and where you're from.
Yeah, no, thanks for the invite, Ronald. But yeah, David Lynch from the UK, the Northeast. So sort of not quite Scotland, but quite far up the UK. So yeah, living here, family, 2 boys, and yeah, looking forward to chatting.
Cool. So you started a business in the healthcare sector. Let's start with that. You said you started it from a spare room, or it's like kind of in the US, we always like, yeah, they started in their garage. You literally started in a spare room. So talk about what that was, and then we'll work our way up through how you exited it.
Yeah, so as I say, it was kind of a bedroom startup. It was in, as you say, it was in the healthcare sector, and it was all around mobility, stroke disability product. In particular, we focused on the handling of people. So we had hoists and slings and all different types of sort of apparatus to help get people from A to B, generally people that couldn't wait there. So we started out as a reseller. We were buying products and selling products. We moved into the servicing and the repair and the installation of the product, and then sort of moved into manufacturing. We sort of grew the business through our own products as well as other people's products. And yeah, we also did a bit of e-commerce, bit of private sale stuff in the end. But yeah, it felt like a long journey. It was actually only 11 years. And when I started the business, I was 29, and I set myself a target of selling and getting out of the business by the time I was 40. And I achieved that. Well, I missed out by 1 month. But yeah, I was due to sell. I was still 40. I was like, come on, we've got to get this deal done. But it dropped into October, which then made me 41. And yeah, and that's actually why my new company and my new investment group's called 41 Kong, because I just turned 41.
Interesting. So it was medical, like you said, devices and stuff that help people, like slings, and help people move around. I've reviewed a few of those. Actually, there was a gentleman in my, like, probably 1 or 2 weeks after I took the first mentoring course. You and I have taken some of the same mentoring courses. So I took the same one you took. It's always okay to hear. We both have done the Harbor Club. I've done Roller Appraisers. I've done other programs. But we done that. I was trying to, the reason I did that program, by the way, is I acquired something and I did it really wrong. I was like, I better go find somebody that knows what they're doing and do the next one right. But one of the cool things I got to review was somebody referred us a guy who owned a medical devices and supplies company. And like you did, disability assistance type of things, slings and people, things to help people move around. All they did was supply a different niche. They supplied fire rescue, ambulances and fire trucks and stuff with the materials and stuff they needed. So everything from like defibrillators that they have to have, like when defibrillators change from one model to another and they're supposed to get the updates or whatever, they carried those all the way down to the bandages and stuff like that. Everything other than prescription medicines. Did you you built this to a goal at 40 years old that you wanted to sell. Was it ready to sell, or was it were you there's a difference between a business being ready to sell, like, it's at its where I can take it to, right? It's ready to sell, versus I made a goal to be done by the time I'm 40, I'm ready to sell. So, where do you think you were
Yeah.
on that spectrum of the business being ready or you were just ready?
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, so I started to plan about 3 years before,
Perfect.
and when I sold, I got out and I left on day 1.
Mhm.
So, like, I remember being down at the solicitors on a Friday, and I never went back, and I think that's because I put the right things in place at the right time. Your management structure was good, systems and processes were good, and the business just didn't rely on me. I'd set all of the contracts up with the NHS and other local authorities. So yeah, to answer your question, I would say I planned things, and it probably took us about 3 years to put things in place to allow me not to be needed anymore.
Let's go back to the beginning. You started this in your house, right? What were the early days like? What were some of your catalysts to growth? Was it just grit, or did you have some breakthroughs in ways to grow the company? Did you do any acquisitions along the way, or did you just did any aha moments that really, like, propelled the growth of the company and got you out of your house and into something more substantial?
Yeah, well, it was all organic growth, and that's the interesting thing. We can maybe talk about that a bit later, because I didn't know anything about mergers or acquisitions or anything. So no, I think it was we did well. Where we really grew was the contract. We won a contract fairly early, probably above where we should have, and that was the catalyst to then grow more. So we conquered the northeast of England with local authority contract, and then the challenge was working outside of that area, and in the end, we ended up down as far as like London and the surrounding areas. And it was a case of putting that infrastructure in place to be able to do that. So winning the contracts with the NHS was good for many reasons. And then one of the reasons to start the manufacture was to really drive our margin, our gross margin up, which obviously was part of the strategy of exit. So yeah, I would say that the biggest sort of area of growth came from winning the public sector contracts, and it was like repeatable, predictable revenue. We the contracts were often 3 years plus one, so 5 years altogether. These things took a lot of time to put together, but if you did win them, then sort of then really catapulted your turnover, and that turnover was secure for a good number of years.
So, for our US listeners, when they say turnover, they're referring to their revenue, right? So in the US, turnover is usually like when we're losing employees, like the turnover is like your staff. If you've got a 3% staff, you're losing 3 if you got a 3% turnover, you're losing 3 staff per 100. In the UK, that's a phrase that's used for what we refer to as, our revenue, I guess, would be the easiest way to explain it, so, cool. We interview people from all around the world, and everybody does just things just a slightly different there. I like, that it was organic. I like that when you went after the bigger contracts, right? That's something a lot of people need to hear. Don't be afraid to try to get one. The worst thing can happen to you is you get it, and now you have to figure out how to live up to it. We do this a lot with some of the guys on the show. They go out and they're trying to buy a company, they bought a company, and then they bought it, and it's like, oh my god, now what, right? It's the dog that chases the car finally catches the car. What are you going to do? So you landed the big contract, you guys grew, you kinda knew in the back of the head, sound like you kinda knew from the start, like, "Okay, this is a 10-year plan." There's something to be said about having that vision and engineering a company from day one, knowing this isn't the thing I'm doing the rest of my life. This is something I'm gonna build, grow, and eventually sell. I think that sets you up for a win. It really did. A lot of people work theirself into burnout and then realize it's time to exit, and then they get the rude awakening that there's a 3-year process, 2 to 3 years of working the systems and processes in, making themselves not a key person inside of the company, making sure they're not trying to Here in the US, we do everything we can to minimize our tax impact. A lot of times that means you look like you're making less revenue than you really are, just because you're taking every deduction you can. Well, that impacts the sell too. So having that vision, it's that built to sell mentality is brilliant. And I think every company should do it. Like everything I ever touch from this point forward will be built to sell,
Yeah.
even if I want to hold on to it to the rest of my life, just because a company built to sell is actually going to run better, right, than just about anything else.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing is really I'd never been in a business before. I'd never had a business.
Mhm.
So I was learning on the job. I'd never interviewed a member of staff. I'd never even bought like stock or anything like that. So, don't get us wrong, there was a lot of mistakes along the way, but I think just having that attitude, that can do attitude, and I think just getting started on stuff and not being afraid. And I think that's what helped us get to where I wanted to be. And I think when I did sell and I stuff like that, yeah, the money is great, but the experience you get, like, it is going through all of that. It was brilliant. And yeah, I think the people that helped me along the way, that's one of my motivations now, to give a little bit back to others.
I'm trying to think that you grew this thing from 0 to, you mind giving us a kind of a range of what the top end of it was, like what the turnover was, your revenue was at exit?
It was 8 figures. It was 8 figures, and when we actually sold, and that was made up of different components. So the supply, installation, and maintenance, which were the contract, the manufacture of our own products, and we had like a little distribution network in the UK and some abroad, and also a little bit of e-commerce, direct sales. So it was made up of those areas. But ultimately, the large sort of trade buyer who were private equity backed, ultimately what they wanted was the contract side. I don't think done a lot with the manufacturing. I don't think done a lot with the e-commerce, but the contract side, the contracts that we had were product areas that they didn't have. So it was kind of just like an easy route for them to get into what we call the patient handling arena.
So they were doing more of a strategic acquisition then, because they're wanting to buy your contracts and your connections with all these, companies and stuff. Most often, it's because they have other products and they wanna cross-sell and upsell to them, right? You built an in to a market they wanted to be in. That's great. They pay a higher multiple too. That's usually a higher exit than just a straight PE firm that you're the first thing they're buying in that space, or an acquisition entrepreneur like one of us would go out and pay. The strategic acquirers usually will pay more. So that's what we all hope to do, right? In the acquisitions and the entrepreneur world is pick up a company like that, do a few changes to it, run it for a year or 2 or 3 or 5 or whatever, and then sell it to the strategic buyers because they pay a higher multiple.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And they continue to do that. And, they have bought all over Europe, and I think the world as well. So I don't know where they're up to now, sort of turnover wise, but uh, pretty big. And yeah, the healthcare does bring an attractive multiple. So it's definitely the right sort of sector to be in if you're going to do this sort of this organic build, scale, and sell.
What was your during your 3-4 window when you're getting ready to sell, what was your biggest roadblocks or the biggest challenges to get it truly ready? I imagine through the process, you weren't aware that all they wanted was the contract side, so you were probably trying to fix it all, right? You had all these different branches, and you're trying to get standard operating procedures and all that and everything in place. But what were some of the bigger challenges and some of the things that were different than what you had expected, right? You thought you were gonna do X, and it just took longer or was harder to do.
Yeah, I think our culture was very entrepreneurial, and not that mean you do what you can for the customer. You go above and beyond for the customer, and you solve their problems, but actually in the background, you're creating a lot of chaos. and, and we certainly created a lot of chaos. And there was a lot of human error. And there was a lot of like staff were probably a little bit fed up and disgruntled of always having to do last minute things. So we spent a lot of time on the systems and the processes, getting things right, implementing software so that we could still delight the customer, go above and beyond for the customer, but we knew that we're getting it right in the background and stock was getting recorded properly and stock was always there when we needed it and we weren't begging from here to solve this problem over here. So I think that the systems and the processes and putting that in was the biggest challenge because it's not just a factor of your time. It's getting everybody on board and changing the way you do things. We had a lot of engineers going out and they started to use tablet. They had to record things in a certain way. They had to upload photographs and everything. So it was a culture shift for the right reasons, but probably not many people understood why at the time.
I get that it was a culture shift, and I can see that there's entire sections of business libraries written about, like, change and books like Who Moved My Cheese and all that, and people the human psychology's, resistance to change. The process of getting people on board, did you communicate to, anybody early on that you were preparing to sell, or is that something you kept to yourself until the very end?
No, I never indicated that, but I guess what I probably did was flirt with the potential buyers. Some of my marketing activity and thought were position ourselves in a way that was attractive to the competition.
Mhm.
So the big boys probably knew that I did want to sell, although I never said that until we got into the discussions further down the line.
Yeah, when you were looking at replacing systems and putting systems and processes in, did you take a look at what the top, say, 5 or 10 potential acquirers were using and choose something that was common amongst them? Like, I see people doing that with accounting and stuff like that. Like, okay, everybody in our industry is using QuickBooks still. We probably should stay on QuickBooks, or everybody in our industry is using a Zero. We probably should go ahead and implement that because that's going to be a lot more appealing. Did you take a look at what the people that you would love to sell to, what they were using before you chose a software solution to implement?
I think that's a brilliant idea. And honestly, we didn't. We chose something. So we used Salesforce. What we did and what was the game changer was we got a local software developer company to bespoke the system to us. The cost of Salesforce is very affordable. However, we spent a lot of money designing this to our exact needs. So in one respect, it was off the shelf and universal. In the other respect, it was bespoke to us and our industry. And yeah, no, so I think to be fair, it was probably more advanced than what the acquirers were using at the time. And I think they've integrated some of that since. But yeah, it's doing the bespoke route was risky and quite costly, but it was the right move. And it wasn't me that drove this. It was our finance and ops director. And I was like, no, I don't want to spend all this money on software, but you know, it was the best money was spent. So now I champion this. Although I'm not a systems and processes guy, I champion how much that can improve your business.
Yeah, I've been through that a couple of times. I told you before we started recording, I was in the IT space for a while. One of the anti-spam companies I worked for, they wanted a new CRM for their sell guys. We built something from a custom platform that was really cool, was doing a lot of automation for them. It was kind of a new startup. And then the new sales rep guy, they hired a retired famous football player. I don't even remember which one it was, but he's in sales now. He's some famous quarterback from years and years ago. to be our director of your VP of sales, and he said he wouldn't take the job unless we moved over to Salesforce because that's what he knew. So I'm familiar with it. It looks cheap or affordable on the front, but the implementation and customization of it was even then, this is 2000, probably 5 or 6, I don't remember, maybe earlier, maybe 2001 too. But even then was tens of thousands of dollars to 50, 60, $70,000 to get it customized for a company of 100. At least they didn't have us use what I jokingly refer to as Confusionsoft, right? Infusionsoft was the one of the ones out there that a lot of sales guys liked and that sells automation and stuff, and that was insanely confusing and painful. I've implemented that one too. So you got your systems updated, you got people doing that. How long did the people you said it was a culture shift and a resistance to change. Was it months or was it, like a half a year? What did I'm trying to get the vision in my own head to when we do these. What is the adoption rate? How long do people take to get comfortable doing something new?
Yeah, I think from coming up with what we wanted to do to implement and to people being comfortable, probably a couple of years, if I'm honest. Yeah, I suppose that the implementation bit was probably the hardest. Just everybody being used to doing things a certain way and a standard way. So yeah, it's a long process, a painful process, but worth it in the end, like a lot of things.
So, now you've got it in there. I was surprised to say it was a couple years, but I could see that people they say they're using it, and you find people who aren't, and there's still people trying to do things on paper and that type of stuff. But we've got this thing implemented. Did you see efficiencies after switching over to the system? Did it make things? They always sell you when you buy Salesforce or you buy some type of inventory tracking software stuff. They sell you on how much money you're going to save in the long run because you're going to be more efficient. Did you get a chance to witness the efficiencies, or what did you sell before that ever happened, or what did that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the biggest thing it done, which I didn't think it would, was it helped us grow our margin. And I think that's where it went from like 48% gross margin to about 61%. And that was because the system allowed us to measure everything that we did, quotes that went out, everything really measured. So the dashboards that we implemented were constantly looking at how many quotes would run, the margin was running through the quote, and it played a big part in helping us transform our margin because it sort of the KPIs, the reports, the dashboards, yeah, it sort of really transformed that side, which I wasn't quite expecting, and it's sort of like I don't know whether you run a sales team before, but a lot of the time salespeople want to do their own thing, and it sort of helped make them a bit more accountable. And everything was there. We had the live dashboards up in the office of how many quotes each person had done, how many calls they'd made, how many visits and meetings that they had, and it was just all live data, and it was great to see.
I once got to see a company who took that live dashboard and they made a game out of it, right? And they put screens. They had about 200 employees. They put screens up throughout their floor, like where people were working, and the top performers would show up on the screens. It was rotating screens, so you see who's at the top of the leaderboard. And then every once in a while, they did management by shaming some people too, because every once in a while, I'll show you the bottom of the leaderboard. Like these are the people doing the fewest calls. These are the people doing the least amount, and like their border for their when they were on the screen, the border was all red, and then when the guys that were leading the leaderboard, their border was green. And I thought, I don't know. I had to pull him aside because I know the guy that owns it. It's like, is that really working? He'll go, yeah, peer pressure really works because it's a team environment. Everybody's like, come on, buddy, come on. You want to be off but somebody always has to be the bottom, right? So this company, if you think about it, you got 50 people on the floor doing the same, type of task. And somebody's always going to be the bottom five, even if they're just rock stars compared to every other company on the planet. So, it's a tough environment, I think, but I'm a big fan of anything that's measured can be improved. So having those dashboards and having that one of the things some of the tools are starting to do is you can do competitive analysis too, right? You said something that caught my greedy American capitalist pig, radar, and that their profit margin, your gross profit margins went from 40 to 60%. That is insane for most companies, right? I'm in pest control after 2.5 years of one of my family members, my cousin, saying, I should get into it, I should get into it. And I kept telling him no. I started looking at mergers and acquisitions and I've seen some of them on sale for like biz by sell, and they were claiming 30 to 40%, 50% profit margins, like BS. And I started doing the research, and when I did, I was like, wait a second, why am I telling him no? We should probably go look at this. That's a high profit margin, gross profit margin. But here, if I was in your sector doing what you're doing and trying to hit those profit margins, I'd probably be going after government contracts because they tend to pay more. Did you end up having government contracts on that, or was it this is just the normal medical device industry has a high profit margin?
Yeah, no, I think the margins in the industry are probably higher than most, but
Mhm.
the side of it, the actual contracts themselves were fairly tight, but it was the opportunities and the other stuff that you got around it where it was probably led to the higher margin stuff, some of the work, some of the bigger projects. So I guess to give you an example, we might have a contract to cover the whole of a region, and that was in supply, install, and maintenance. But through the people we met and through the recommendation, we would be quoting for like brand new school builds and brand new hospital builds and just the opportunities to sort of, what's that sort of marketing technique where you go in at a certain margin and then it's the work you get on the back of that helps you sort of drive your overall margin. But that's one of the reasons to start to manufacture as well, which massively helped because once we had the footfall and we had the contracts in place, then it was just a case of converting some of that to our own products, which obviously drove the margins up.
Were you guys, it's okay to say you're not gonna tell me, but what was the price range, or not the price range of selling, but the actual, like, you were doing 10,000,000 in turnover revenue a year, 50,000,000. What was the when you exited, what was your peak? Did you guys? Because if you're into installation and you're into manufacturing and stuff like that, I'm drawing a bigger and bigger picture in my head of how big this thing was in the 11 years you ran it. So, kinda you don't can you give
Yeah,
us a ballpark, or does that make you uncomfortable?
huge. You talking sort of 15 mark. It wasn't like huge because we already started manufacturing, I would say three, maybe 3 years, 4 years before the exit. So we weren't an established manufacturer or anything like that. Um, and it was mainly the supply, installation, service, repair side of it, which was like the big area. But yeah, and I think the interesting thing is, and again, something we might come on to, but because that was all organic growth from a guy that started from his bedroom with few rounds of debt funding, but no sort of big equity sort of release or anything like that. It was all the organic growth that I didn't even know how to do it. I was figuring it out. So the exciting bit for me is now I know how to do the organic growth and I now understand more about mergers and acquisitions, where at the time I thought that was just for the people on TV. That's where the real opportunity is for me now, moving forward, because if I can combine that organic growth with the strategic growth and fast track what we did organically because of what I know now, I think that's where the exciting sort of opportunity lies.
It's interesting, I think there's a unique inside of what you were doing, there's a unique moat, what we refer to as a moat, a barrier to entry, especially on the installation. One of my I don't think I told you this before the show, but one of the last businesses I had was a real estate investment firm. So we would remodel houses and buy houses and, mostly residential. And we actually had one of the houses I sold on my own. I sold to somebody who was in a wheelchair, and they asked me before we finished remodeling the house if we could do certain things to it. And I had no idea that, like, they needed a lift to get in and out of the big tub. There's a big jacuzzi tub there, and there needed to be a special lift. bolted to the foundation to help them getting out. So I try to buy the thing and have my handyman, my guy install it, and they said, "Oh, no, you can't do that," right? The manufacturer requires a certified installer to install it because of the health and danger risk of it, and it was expensive. Like, now the guy was paying me. It wasn't my wallet. The guy, he bought the house and he needed it done a certain way, so he was paying for this, but I was trying to save him some money because, like, my guy's good, the guy I had, you can put a handrail in your shower, you can put a lift, into the concrete foundation. We bolt things to the foundation all the time, and it just that was not allowed. So, there's a
Yeah.
barrier to entry in that some of these devices, they require it to be installed because of liability reasons by somebody who's been trained by them.
Yeah, exactly. That's, I mean, these are class one medical devices, and if you install a hoist on someone's ceiling and the hoist comes down, then someone's likely to die. So yeah, it has to be done. And you're
Yeah,
right, there's a barrier entry there, but there's a challenge around the skills and getting the right people and enough people to be able to do this type of work. But yeah, the average sort of transaction of each deal was fairly high. As you mentioned there, I mean, like a swimming pool hoist, you're probably talking 6,000-7,000 English pounds. Like a full house coverage system that maybe goes from bedroom through your bathroom through another room. Maybe you're talking maybe 10,000 pounds, English pounds. So the transaction value was high, but it was a very skilled job. And we were lucky, just as our competitors were, to employ some really good skilled people that were really good at the job.
yeah.
And we were providing a life changing solution for people, because if they didn't have this, they couldn't get out of bed. So it was changing people's lives as well.
Yeah, it was interesting because I toured the house right before we closed on it because I wanted to see what all they did. They put a hoist in his above his bed to help him get in and out of the bed into his chair. They ripped the bathroom. We just finished totally out on one of the bathrooms, his master bedroom. It was a walk-in shower, but it had a ledge. They ripped it out of there and made it to where you could just wheel the wheelchair right into the shower, and there was a lift there to move him out of his wheelchair. But if you wanted to, he could have just wheeled right in. There's no longer a ledge. So they changed the structure of the floor mostly in the shower, and then for that one, that bathroom was huge, a walk-in shower and a big jacuzzi type bathtub with jets. They mounted the lift. It was like a swimming pool lift, is exactly what it reminded me of, to get him in and out of the jacuzzi swimming pool. They mounted that to the foundation because it was a big hydraulic looking thing, and then above his bed, there was something hanging from the ceiling that helped him get in and out of bed, and then I'm trying to think there was something else in the house. The guest bathroom had different handrails and stuff like that, so I guess he had some friends that needed help and stuff. So, but even the bathroom he just didn't intend on using, they modified, and then the kitchen, they took one side of our cabinets out and made them narrower because the kitchen was a galley kitchen, and it was a little too narrow to you could wheel in, but you have to back out, I think, instead of turning full around if you wanted to go. So they just made a narrower set of cabinets on one side. They did a lot of work to it, but, it was a specialized team that went in and did it.
Yeah. The huge growth sector, I mean, we're trying to keep people out of hospitals and trying to keep people in their own homes. Within that sort of home care arena, you've got your access, as you say, your stair lifts and your through the floor lifts. You've got pressure care, your beds and your specialist mattresses. You've got your patient handling, which is your hoist and your slings and that sort of thing. You've got environmental controls, so somebody can operate the front door and all sorts, from depending on how easily they can communicate. There's a lot of materials and equipment around that, so it is a big and it's a growing sector, and but it's a fulfilling sector as well and an enjoyable one. So yeah, it's something that I've been out of the industry for 3 years now. So yeah, it definitely brings fond memories.
Awesome. Let's talk about, okay, you've now exited, you learned about mergers and acquisitions. It sounded like you took a little time off in between there. You're trying to probably figure out what you wanna do next. A lot of times, you've been doing something day in and day out, 40, 50, 60, 70 hours a week as an entrepreneur for 11 years. there's a rude awakening when you wake up the next day. What was it like, the day or 2 after your sale where, like, "I don't have to go to work and there's nothing for me to do?" When did it sink in that you better find something else to do, you're bored?
Yeah. Well, it was a brilliant feeling. The only challenge or downside was it was COVID. We couldn't really go at the time. We couldn't really go very far, but I think it worked in my favor because it just really helped me switch off, down tools, relax, and it wasn't a case of then flying all over the world and doing a super duper trip or holiday or vacation, let's just say. And yeah, so I suppose it's probably took me 3 years to really, I would say, get my sort of mojo, get my motivation back because I have really enjoyed just not being accountable to anyone, just having a bit of financial freedom and being able to do what I want when I want. And that still forms part of what I want to do going forward. But it is a really good feeling. And I would always say, people say to me, should I sell me business? When should I sell me business? I think that the best time to sell your business is when somebody's prepared to buy it. And it's amazing what you can do when you haven't got the day-to-day pressures. I've discovered things that I didn't even know existed in new areas and new passions. And I think that's a massive part of having a capital event and having an exit. You've got just your time to discover new areas.
I think that COVID might have helped you. A lot of business owners tie their whole sense of identity around their business. Now you did something really cool in the fact that you prepped for 3 years, you made yourself not a key person in the company. So you kinda had a time to ramp down to where you already kinda knew when you left it didn't need you and it was already in good hands. Because if you totally prepped it for sale, it was running well with or without you, right? So a lot of the times people, when they leave a company, they're just the back of their head is, "Where is it gonna go? Is it gonna survive?" You took care of that by preparing it properly for exit. But, and then you kinda COVID might have helped in the fact that you didn't have a choice but to sit there and think because you couldn't go anywhere and do anything else. So, it wasn't like you were traveling the world the day after you exit, you got your wire transferred into your account, and you went on a world trip and realized, "Oh my god, this isn't as fun as I thought it would be." You got to spend a month, 2 months, 6 months, whatever it was, in semi-isolation, meditation, figured out what you wanted to do, and as soon as it broke loose, I'm sure you did get to go see things and do things and enjoy that freedom, but, you got to go through that process in a different environment than most people would have. Probably fairly thankful that you were financially able to do it because a lot of people were really hurt during the COVID. Their businesses, especially when they're B2C customers, their businesses really hurt during that time frame.
We were lucky because again, company and or group that bought us, they were in like the space of manufacturing beds and mattresses and all different stuff for the NHS, and so they didn't. If anything, their business did grow during these times, and it did affect our business to a point, but not that much compared to most other businesses.
Let's jump into what you're doing now, right? For the last 10 or 15 minutes here, let's talk about, okay, you're back into the game. It sounds like you've got together an acquisition group. That You're maybe back in the same sector, but what is it that you're up to now? And we'll just kind of dive into that.
Yeah, so I had a 3 year non-compete. I've got a guy local to me, Ross. He's got a medical background, healthcare. He started off as a physio, and he's done very like amazing things in the space. And he started in the mergers and acquisition space before me. And we just, funny enough, we just met. We knew each other on LinkedIn, but we met in the airport on our way to the Harbour Club Deal Fest in Dubai. And we just got talking and we just said like, what you're doing, what I'm doing. And we said, let's get together. Let's get together and really go at this. So cut long story short, we're on a buy and build strategy. We're still in fairly early stages. We've got 2 or 3 deals that are progressing, couple in the UK and and a fairly big one in the US. So that again, it's back to having a learning curve. I learn from Ross. I've learned from other people in the space, but again, just going back to what I said before, I'm going to combine that organic growth and those experiences with the strategic growth and buying companies. We can make them better with my knowledge and Russ's knowledge. We can make each company better and bigger, and then we can keep bolting businesses in to the group. And the plan is a sort of a 5-year-ish sort of plan, which would take me up to around about 50. So I just like me round numbers, but there's the healthcare side is kind of what I know and what I've lived and breathed previously. And then there's another area which is like facilities management, trades or electrical, mechanical, and part of that facility services is commercial cleaning. And I've recently just done a deal with a company where I've acquired a stake in that company, UK based, and we're going to do a buy and build in that space as well. So the plan is, high level plan is to grow in healthcare and facilities management, which will include some commercial cleaning, electrical, etc. Build them both. There might be a third one as well, because I've got an interesting one that's bubbling under the surface, but at least two, if not three, groups of companies that I will get exits from in around about 5 years' time.
I have a buddy here in California. Years ago, he did the commercial cleaning, and he had a heck of a time because here in California, in a lot of places, it's all about labor cost, right? To be competitive in the commercial cleaning space and bid competitively. And he had big clients, hospitals, and he had two or three. I think he had two hospitals and some major big corporations that they went in and did cleaning. And he had staff that were trained in swapping out like the medical supply, the hazardous waste boxes and all that. So he went through the thing and got some people certified in different things. But labor was, I always ask him, what's your biggest challenge? He says, finding labor that's affordable enough that I can compete on these contracts. Because you got to pay people right and pay them enough that they hang around. Cleaning job's kind of a low level job, so it's not a high paying job. But if I pay enough to keep people around, often I can't compete on the contracts, right? It's an interesting problem to solve. You're just getting into that space. Do you see that in the UK too, where your biggest component of that business is cost of labor?
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think that's an opportunity as well, because the things that we did, our culture to be able to attract good people. They've already got some really good people. The business has already been going for like sort of 5 years or so. And yeah, they've got a good management team in place already. And that management team really looks after the staff. But again, looking at the positives, it's predictable revenue, it's contracted revenue. So it's very similar in that respect to what I've done before. And I really like that model. You know where you are month to month, kind of year to year. So I definitely see the positives outweigh the negatives in this sector as well.
Yeah, and the cool thing with it is as long as everybody's held to the same standard, and nobody's playing against the rules, then everybody shares the same problems, right? All your competitors are having the same challenges of keeping good people and paying people right and stuff. On the medical side of what you're working on, are you back into like looking at medical devices and stuff like that? Or are you in, I know that you said physio for those of us in the United States, that's a physical therapist, something I see twice a week. But it's the guy helping injured people get back on track or helping people become more mobile and that type of stuff. So it seems like that there's a lot of alignment with the physical therapist world and what you did with your medical devices world, right? A lot of the stuff that, you know, somebody who needs physical therapy would need to use in their house to help them get there. You sold in your previous
Yeah.
company, so I can see where would have great alignment with Ross. But what sector? I mean, the medical fields is so huge. What
Yeah.
sector are you guys looking at?
Yeah. So again, it's all around the sort of fancy names of technology,
Mhm.
and that all goes areas I mentioned before. So patient handling, as we did before, pressure care, access to your stair lifts and your ramps and your
Oh,
lift,
so it's back in that. Cool.
all of those areas. And then within them areas, a combination of manufacturers, distributors, and like a service and installation division.
Mhm.
There's a lot to go at there. But in theory, if we did want to go on past the 5 year mark, we could bring our own therapy services in. We could have our own care homes. You know, the possibilities are endless.
And those profit margins are still huge. I looked at a company, I guess it's been almost a year and a half ago now, that they only did installation, so they didn't manufacture it or whatever, but they installed 3 or 4 different product lines of the walk-in showers, like the not walk-in showers, but the walk-in bathtubs. It has the bathtub with the door. You can walk in, sit in a chair, shut the door, and then fill it up, and it's self-sealed. Those things I never realized how outrageously expensive they were, right? But there's decent profit margins. Some of those showers and stuff are in the 30,000 plus dollars US. But that company was doing really, really well. Fortunately, the owner had 3 owners, 2 of them wanted to sell, and the 3rd one kept trying to convince the other 2 he was gonna buy it from them, and I don't usually get involved when if there's 2, I'll consider it, when the 3rd person comes in, I'm kinda out just because it's just so hard to get 3 people to align on everything, and I should circle back around and see what happened, but, he kept thinking he was gonna raise the money to buy the other 2 people out himself. I didn't realize that I seen the profit margins in that particular one, but it didn't click that most medical devices, or at least a lot of them, have ranges like that. It's a very, lucrative space to be in.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it needs to be really because you're not manufacturing in big numbers. You're manufacturing widgets or, you and a lot of the products have to be designed in a way that allows an element of bespokeness. Because, you've got, you're dealing with people, you're dealing with many different disabilities, dealing with many different sort of shapes and sizes of people. So the products need to be adaptable and they need to be built with that ability to the individual and the person. So the kind of the if we were just walking sticks or very basic products, yeah, but the bigger margin stuff is the stuff that's more complicated.
So, I think there's a lot of cool technology devices too out there now that didn't exist, right? Like, my father-in-law's 80, and we have ring door cameras on his door and some other stuff, so he doesn't have to get up and go check the door if he want. He can just open the tablet and see who's bugging. If it's a sales guy, you can tell him just to go away or whatever. But there's technologies out there now that are on the open market that a lot of that help a lot of people who have mobility issues and stuff. What's a sector, is there anything inside of that industry, like, you just still steer clear of, that you're just not interested in? Is there danger zones or things that you see that are either low profit or you think is in the life of a particular product or something like that? If a company came across they're selling this, we're not even interested, we're not gonna look.
No, I mean, I think we would look at everything. The most push specialist stuff is probably preferred. A company that just sells these mobility scooters, they're manufactured probably in China or there, and it's box. That's more like box shifting. And I've been brought up in the more specialist field where you need there's an element of advisory from your company as well, and helping the therapist, the physiotherapist, and the occupational therapist, helping them solve problems for their users, their service users.
Well, I absolutely wanna thank you for everything you do. I don't say this on the show very often. I've used many of the devices. In my youth, I was very active. I raced dirt bikes and motorcycles. I've been injured quite a few times. I've had 6 knee reconstructions. Both my ACLs have been replaced in both my legs multiple times. I've used the wheelchairs. I've used things that help me get in and out of things. Even recently, I was in a car wreck. So right now, if I walk more than 200 yards, I have to use a specialized walker to make sure I don't fall. And I'm going through physical therapy of physio right now to get away from that thing so I can be more mobile. So I appreciate, the fact that you build companies like that, you provide services like that, and there are companies that can help people stay mobile and live on their own. Because these are minor injuries compared to what a lot of people have. I couldn't imagine living in a house where I have a hard time getting around my house. So appreciate that, the companies are out there doing what they're doing. And now you get a chance to look at it from a different point of view, from the acquisition entrepreneurs viewers point of view. You did it right the first time, and now you get to go help other people do it right. You get to go acquire companies, be that safe pair of hands to take them from what they built to the next level. I look forward to seeing what you build. I look forward to maybe having you come back on here next year and go, here's where we're at, right? We're at 10 million already in revenue, 20 million, whatever it is. And you can bring Ross with you. I'm a big Ross has been on the show too. So, you guys can come on together and we brainstorm on where you're going and get the word out of what you're up to. So that would be fun.
That'd be cool.
Thank you for being here today. If anybody wants to sell David and his crew a medical device company or a cleaning company, how do you want them to reach out to you? What's the best way to contact you?
Yeah, probably LinkedIn. Yeah, it's good to find us on LinkedIn. I'm fairly active on LinkedIn. Instagram as well. I spend a bit of time on there. So maybe we'll put the links in the description. And yeah, feel free to reach out if indeed you have got a company that you're looking to sell or even looking to grow, to scale and grow. It might be something we can help with.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you for being here today. We'll call that a show, and I'll make sure those links are in the show notes so that anybody who's listening can, if you're driving or something, just when you get to a stop, pull over, look at the show notes, the link to find David, and will be in there. And again, we'll call that a show. Thank you. I want to announce our new channel partners, the ITX Marketplace. Since 1998, ITX has created $5 billion in value by selling more than 225 IT businesses in 20 countries. ITX works exclusively with IT-enabled businesses generating between $5 million and $30 million who are ready to be sold, and M&A decision makers who are ready to buy. For over 25 years, ITX has developed industry knowledge that helps determine whether a seller is a good fit for their buyers before making the match. ITX Mergers and Acquisition Marketplace we have partnered with has a proprietary database of 50,000 plus global buyers seeking IT service firms, managed service providers, Microsoft service providers, software as a service platforms, and channel partners with Microsoft, Oracle, ServiceNow, and the Salesforce space. If you have an IT-enabled business you're ready to sell, I want you to visit the itexchangenet.com/marketplace. How to exit. That link will be in the show notes. Visit them now.